customers. We have 850 plus product tiers and 150 plus test consultants. As of now, we've released more than 2,000 software products, major and minor releases. We have offices in Chennai, Gurgaon in India, and a couple of offices in the USA, as well as London, and in Germany and Sharjah. These are the two people who will be speaking today. Shankar Krishnamurthy, who is the CTO and co-founder of Aspire Systems. He has 15 years of experience in building successful software products. He also heads the SaaS mobility and test automation COEs. He's very passionate about providing world-class solutions for customers. And the second speaker will be Vasu Swaminathan. He's a QA specialist and practice head. He has 12 years of experience. He's currently heading the testing delivery unit. He's always managed to wow every single customer that he has met. He's as of now provided 50 plus testing and test automation consulting sessions. He's very passionate about finding very innovative ways to meet every single needs the customer comes up with. I mean, for every single problem that the customer has come up with, he always comes up with a very innovative, simple solution to address it. Shankar, can you take it up from here?
Yes, Ganesh, thank you. Thanks for the introduction and then the opportunity, Ganesh. Hi all, good morning and good afternoon, depending on wherever you are. Happy to be interacting with all of you and sharing some of our experiences that we have gained in the, over the years on building high quality software products and applications. In the next few minutes, I'm going to be delving into details about the quality and how to release high quality software products to customers in consistent fashion. Again, just want to underline high quality software products in consistent fashion. I'm also conscious of two words here. Just want to make sure that I kind of like highlight that. One is I'm avoiding the word called build. I'm saying releasing high quality software products and then avoiding the word called build. The main reason is build and release are two different aspects, and then in this session we want to focus more around quality and the test maturity. And the second one is like I'm also conscious in terms of not relating this to test maturity model. If you go on Google around test maturity, so what you would really see is like test maturity model. And want to make sure that like in this session we are not going to be talking about test maturity model or capability maturity model, and we are going to be talking about more around how do we build how do we release high quality products or applications, and how do we increase the test maturity of the product. That's what we are going to be talking about in this session. So coming to the CXO priorities, one of the things that I have been looking at some of the Gartner or Forrester reports are something like this. Like what I have read is like more around how do you run the business and how are they related to maturity? How are they related to test maturity? So there have been several priorities which are listed. Obviously something like this: customer acquisition, customer experience, efficiency, and several things. I felt the four which I'm showing here in this slide, that's high user adoption, faster to market, higher ROI, on-demand expertise. All these four are directly related to test maturity and high quality. So that's what like I want to focus in this particular slide. Let's talk about the user adoption. As all of us know, like the higher the quality of the product, it will automatically result in higher user adoption. I'm saying quality from all-round perspective here. When we say quality, oftentimes it's generally it's mapped to meeting business requirements or meeting the functionality of the product. I think it's much more than that. So, say for example, when we say higher quality, it's an all-round perspective. There is excellent user interface and excellent user experience. Then all the business functionalities of the product or the application working properly. Then the product is highly scalable. product is performing very well, say for example, if you look at Google search, so it shows the results in 10 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds. So the product should really perform really well. So all these nuances or all these attributes of a high quality product will automatically result in higher user adoption. And obviously, like lower the quality, it will automatically result in lower user adoption. And again, lower user adoption meaning like lower license fee or lower usage, and then the lower revenues. So the higher user adoption is extremely important, and for that the high quality is very important. And same way, if you look at faster time to market, we are all driven towards the faster time to market. We want to kind of release our product or application or feature faster to the market. So can we release it by say yesterday, or can we release before our competition releases? So we release several alpha, beta, gamma products, and then make sure that like we kind of have our prospective customers and customers test the waters and then like the product. But in this process, will we compromise quality, or will we compromise the quality to increase the higher efficiency like that? So that again leads to, it brings the question on the quality. Then if you look at the higher return on investment, that's again, it's very important for all of us. So in this current discussion, when we mean ROI, what we are talking about is investing on the tools and techniques that we use to make the product is really high quality. So while user adoption, faster time to market, higher ROI, these are all very important. I have also listed on-demand expertise. Why is on-demand expertise is very important for a CXO like you to build high quality product? I can think of two reasons. One is, well, there are several software engineers available in the market, but the actual expertise in building high quality software products or high quality software application is actually very less, and that's where the talent search comes in, right? And same way, on the other side, experienced people are also retiring. So when both put together comes, so for building a newer product or application, so it and then the CXO also has a prior meaning, like has to meet the deadline and then meet certain customer expectations. So that actually adds a lot of stress to the CXOs. And again, we all know that like higher the experience may also result in high quality. That's the misnomer, but still we all feel that like if we have very capable, highly talented engineers in the team, so they will automatically produce high quality product. So all these 4 points, that is higher user adoption, faster time to market, higher ROI, on-demand expertise, they all have the quality impacts. So, well, having said that, so and we all again know that like high quality is extremely critical for us to sustain and retain the leadership in whichever space we are. So why is quality important? And I just want the reason I'm again underlying on the quality is more to stress on the fact that it's extremely important that like all of us recognize the importance of quality. That's the reason I'm again going back on that, and then also talking about high quality products. Again, there also I can think of 2 major reasons. One is our customers, and second is our competition. So our customers are very well sophisticated compared to 3 or 4 years back, and now if you look at our customers, they understand the technology well, they understand what is SOA, what is web services, what is cloud, and they are very well socially networked. So when they look at a product, so they immediately know how good is the product is. Same way, our competition is always overworking, and that they also push us to the edge that like we work hard to make sure that like we release the product of good high quality, and then again before they release the product. So these both are very important for us from the point of making sure that like we release high quality product. Ganesh. Let's move on further. So when we talked about the high quality and then the importance, how frequently we come across these great or great products. So if you look at Apple, Google, we all know they are all great products. But how often day in and day out like we come across such great products? I think if you really look at it, we work with the mediocre products most of the time, and then come across high quality products in fewer times. That's my take on it. But so if you look at it, one of the major, if you look at the reasons, these are the 4 reasons which come to my mind. That is like the top challenges that all of us, that is all the CXOs and then the software development community face in terms of producing the high quality. So there is like communication, lack of all-round expertise, and then not able to implement right fit tools, or like not able to follow best practices. So these 4 come as a top challenge in front of the software development teams to produce high quality product or great products in a consistent way. So let me again explain in each of these things. See, like the challenges on the collaboration side. In any software development team, so I think there are totally 5 key stakeholders. We have shown 4 here, and then we have not shown one very important stakeholder, that is customer. But still, let me explain the stakeholders. So one is the business analyst, developer, QA, and then the product management. So these 4 key stakeholders, they are all again internal to the software development team, and customer is external. So that's the reason we kind of like didn't show here. But these 4 key stakeholders, that is BA, developers, QA, and then the management. There are a number of challenges, more around communication and then the collaboration. So let's look at some of the challenges that a business analyst face. So the product doesn't meet user requirements. Business requirements are not properly transformed or like not captured into the end product functionality. We have seen this time and again in several products. The business analyst has given understood the end user requirements in some way, and then it's translated in another way by, say, for example, a technical architect, and then the developer has produced something. So at the end of the day, it didn't meet anyone's expectations. So we have seen several such examples. And same way, like BA needs to support multiple developers, and then obviously the amount of time that goes in terms of answering questions is much higher compared to say, for example, refining the requirements. And now if you look at the developers' challenges, what developers would keep saying is, well, the requirements keep changing, the changes keep coming all the time, and then you're not able to stick to one line of development. Or like, I do not know about the entire domain, or how the, say for example, if I'm building a patient management system, I do not know how the entire workflow is going to be. So that also brings in a lot of challenges in terms of building or architecting the product correctly. Same way, if you look at QA, they would have multiple different challenges. And from the management or from the product management perspective, so they would obviously concerned with respect to, say, the ability to release the product on time, again on budget, or like making sure that the or like they would have challenges, something like, well, the product has reached the customer on time, but like customer has started reporting a lot of issues. So the moment you have a lot more issues, the moment you have issues from the quality side, more defects, it will automatically lead to several challenges. One is obviously customer dissatisfaction, cost of support, and so on. So if you look at all these questions, these all show or talk about the collaboration or the communication gaps between these different teams. So that is one of the primary challenge, or like one of the primary reason why teams are not able to build high quality product. Ganesh, can you move on to the next one? Yes. So then let's look at the other three challenges. The second one is a lack of all-round expertise on building for quality. So when we say again all-round, so like we mentioned earlier, again, well, it's a reiteration, but still the high user experience, high usability, then all the functionalities working properly, and then high scalability, high performance. So when we don't look at, or like when the test engineering team is not fully equipped from looking at the product on all angles, it would again lead to issues or like lead to the product being released with defects. So again, that goes back to one of the challenge that a CXO has, that is on-demand expertise. That's a lack of all-round expertise that I'm mentioning here. And then the third one is identifying or implementing right fit tools. This to a certain extent is again dependent on the expertise, but oftentimes what we have seen is like, well, the team is experienced and then having expertise with respect to, say, for example, using the defect tracking tools or using test automation tools. So if they are not implemented in a right way, it may not really help. So that's another, and most of the times what we have seen is like people would start implementing test automation tool, and after one or two releases, since they may not be able to kind of, they may not be able to sustain the efforts in terms of continuing on building the test automation scripts or building the performance testing scripts or unit testing scripts. They would leave it and then go back into the traditional functional testing. And so it will again lead to issues because, like, time may not be sufficient to do the full 100% testing or like maximum coverage testing for the, while releasing the product. And fourth one is again not implementing or like implementing the best practices for testing. So we all know that like if you don't implement the best practices or if you don't learn from mistakes, it will again like lead to issues on the product quality. And these are all the four challenges most of the software development teams or software testing teams face in terms of producing high quality product. So now how do we overcome these challenges? And that is that's where we would like to come and then talk about IQA, that is integrated quality approach, as the solution for facing these challenges and then addressing them and then overcoming these challenges to build great products. So and now what is really IQA? So IQA is nothing but a set of principles and practices used by right people and then using right platforms. So when you put all these four P's together, it will automatically help in terms of bringing in high test maturity or high quality on the product. Let's get into more details on what are all these four P's. Principles. So I'm going to be talking about the principles now. Principles are something like principles are the foundation or the fundamental values that one would use in building and testing the product. So of course I'm going to be leaving the build for a little bit and then focus more around testing. So the 5 principles that I have mentioned here on the slide, that is, one is understand the relationship between time, budget and scope. Then the second principle is like play around working software frequently, that's early testing. And third one is that collaborate with end users frequently. And fourth one is like use test mined and acquired assets. And fifth one is identify non-functional requirements early in the game. So these 5 principles really help in terms of increasing the test maturity of a product. Let's see how each one helps. The time, budget, and scope is an equation, and all of us know. And all of us know the relationship. And say, like, if you look at, let me just tell what is time, budget, and scope in the interest of everyone using the right terminology there. Time is a release date, and budget is either efforts or like the cost of development and testing. Then scope is the list of requirements or the overall scope of the product or application or the functionality that we are building. So these 3 are extremely important, and then they have a relationship. Most of the times, like, we may not recognize the relationship well, and then we tend to say that we need to meet the release date, we need to adhere the budget, and then we also need to release the product in full scope, whatever we have defined in the beginning. While this keeping all the 3 is what everyone wants, but in reality it's not feasible. And most of the time, like in several cases, what we have seen, when we keep all the 3 fixed, there is all the 3 variables fixed, it always leads to chaos and then dissatisfaction. And because, like, we in reality, like, there will be changes, or there may be something which is whatever we have planned may not go in a right way. So there may be some attrition happening in the team, or like there may be some changes coming in. So we need to actually plan for all these things. So what we generally recommend, or like what we generally suggest to our teams is, like, keep 2 fixed and then keep 1 flexed. And most of the times what we see is, like, keep the time and budget fixed and then keep the scope flex. So that really helps. And how does it impact on the quality? So again, like, when we increase the scope, automatically it will also lead to testing the product better. You will need to spend more time on testing. So we need to actually make sure that, like, we plan for that. Then the second one is release working software frequently to the users, and that's what I mentioned as play around working software frequently, and then again start doing the testing early. So we, if you really look at some of the software development methodologies or like life cycles, so like everybody recommends that, like, we should use prototypes, we should write documentation, there is like requirement specification, design documentation, and everything. Well, we do all these things, unless we get an access on working software, it's very difficult to bring in full user experience. Only when people, whether it's end users or the QA engineers, when they actually put their hands on some working software, so it automatically gives much better experience, and then it will also help in terms of testing the product earlier. So when we do this, so it will also bring in yearly feedback for the developers. So the test-driven development is very important because, like, it will help in improving the quality quite a bit. And the third one is collaboration with end users frequently. That's again extremely important because, like, the moment we work with end users very closely, so end users would definitely provide much better feedback in terms of how a functionality should work or how they are going to use the product or use the feature. So that in turn will translate very well to the test engineers in terms of writing the test cases, covering different usage scenarios and all. And also it will reduce the number of change requests. And the other one is identifying non-functional requirements early in the game. That's another very important principle that we need to follow in the testing to make sure that the product is of high quality. Because like how an end user is going to use the product, or who is using the product, what's their roles, and then how many users are going to use the product at the same time. So these are all some of the important non-functional requirements which we would not actually capture in the requirements well, or probably they get captured towards the end of the development. So if the test engineers identify these early in the game, it will really help in terms of covering in terms of making sure that the product works really well. So those are all the principles that will really help. And then let's move on to the practices. So again, like there are several practices. I'm not going to be covering all of this, but like we can really sense these practices if some of you want to delve more in detail. I just want to address again two things. There is testing from end user's perspective, and second one is use the 80-20 rule, because both actually have a lot of impact in terms of meeting the deadline, at the same time releasing the at the same time achieving higher end user adoption for the product. So when we test the product, always test it from the end user perspective and make sure that like you cover the usability testing, performance testing, security testing, scalability testing, right on a day-to-day basis. So when we do those things on a day-to-day basis, it will automatically make sure that we identify the issues well ahead in the game, and then it will reduce the pressure towards the release. And the second one is like if we understand the critical path or the critical usage of the critical usage path of the product, so we would be able to cover most of the issues in a lesser time. Those two are extremely important in my mind while doing the testing on a day-to-day basis. And obviously there are other things in terms of focusing on numbers or automate the turnkey test kind of practices which will really help. And Ganesh, let's move on to the next one. So then the third important aspect is people. So we need to have excellent QA engineers. That's definitely a challenging one, but we have to kind of make sure that the team has well-rounded test engineers who have experience or who can where the team can scale up by bringing in appropriate expertise at right point of time, who has usability testing or performance and scalability, security testing experience, and that's extremely important. And then we need to make sure that the team is kind of like put together well, and then they are also trained on all these aspects. So that's extremely important to make sure that the product is tested well. And let's move on to the next one, Ganesh. Then the fourth P is the platforms. So we all know that like for the collaboration to work well, so we need to use good tools. When I say good tools can be something like a defect tracking tool, so where the entire team logs all the defects in a single tool and then make sure that like it's being accessed by everyone. So while it's a simple one, but it will really help in terms of improving the efficiency and then bridging in any communication gaps and then getting everyone to the same page. And same way from the test automation side, there are several excellent tools like say Borland or Rational or Test Complete. Again, there are both both open source products as well as licensed products available for automating the products. All you need to do is just to choose the right tool, and when you choose the right tool, it automatically helps in terms of reducing the time to test the product. And even within Aspire, so we have actually built a platform called Propel Q, so which is used for automating the testing for some of the products, and then it's again used by both test engineers and developers. When both teams use a single product, which it easily helps in terms of the developers can fire up the automated testing on a daily basis, and then get the list of issues and they come back in the morning. So these platforms really help in terms of improving the efficiency and also bridge any collaboration related gaps. So Ganesh? So now we talked about the integrated quality approach where like we have 4 P's, that's principles, practices, people and platform. So while these 4 are there, so how do we actually implement these things into improving the test maturity and how do we use these things? And that's where like I would request Vasu to actually delve more into details of using these 4 P's and then see how to attain high test maturity. Vasu?
Yeah, thanks Shankar. Thanks Ganesh. So as we are on the slide, that will help us to understand what would be the typical path to test maturity. There is an interesting question from one of the participants that has been sent over the webinar chat window. So one of our participants here has basically asked if I were to outsource my testing services to a vendor of my choice, how do I basically ensure these principles, practices, platforms are all taken care by them, or what kind of guarantee I get from a vendor to ensure that there are high levels of test maturity guaranteed for my product. That's precisely where we are coming to actually. So when we say that we are sharing, or when we see that somebody is outsourcing their services to a vendor, it basically takes more ownership on the vendor's part, or what in today's QA parlance is called as managed testing services. So managed testing services basically is a model where the vendor takes a lot of ownership or runs the show on behalf of the customer. And vendors like Aspire, like us, have a lot of experience in running customers on the managed test services model. So typically we start off with a very small engagement, and over a period of time we help customers reach very high levels of test maturity. So without getting into too much of details on managed testing services, let me get into a path to test maturity. So as we get into the path towards test maturity, there are a series of steps that an organization needs to follow. So, for example, you being a owner of a product, and you plan to handle QA services, or you plan to improve your test maturity due to various reasons. So at what point of time someone considers about test maturity, or what point of time someone considers improving the test maturity? Typically the cases are like there is too much of production issues being identified by your customers. You feel that despite high coverage levels, your product is not able to deliver the kind of quality that is expected out of it, and despite high coverage, there are still issues found in different environments like pre-production or unproduction, and despite a huge team working for you, you still have productivity issues in terms of giving coverage itself. These are some of the typical cases where an organization or a CXO particularly has to worry about where the problem is, or that's the case where he wants to understand why testing is not able to fulfill the needs of the product and market it at the right time, or why user adoption is not happening despite the fact that there is a good sized QA team, they are doing their job well and things like that. So these are some pointers that organizations actually think about towards test maturity. So all these problems basically make CXOs and other management people think, okay, where is my problem? Where is it lying? What's happening on my QA front? So as a first step towards test maturity, embracing test maturity, an organization basically looks at its current state of affairs. So you as an organization are doing an introspection, should do an introspection on your current set of processes before embarking on the other steps that are required towards test maturity. So when I say you need to do an introspection, you need to look at the different facets of the software testing lifecycle that's happening in your organization and find out whether each of the phases are actually doing what is required out of them. For example, if you look at the slide that you currently seeing, I have just tried to collate some questions from different parts of the testing lifecycle. For example, a question on the test execution front could be, what is the level of test planning that you are having with respect to test execution, or what kind of a general testing lifecycle that you follow. So, why do we need such questions is understanding the lifecycle, testing lifecycle, whether the time taking, the time being taken to test a release is a very critical factor to plan your testing basically. So if you look at the subsequent question here, the question basically says, do you have a plan in place when there is a critical time that is needed for your testing? If there is a time crunch, how do you handle your testing? That's how we put it actually. So do you have a plan in place, which is like risk-based testing, or session-based testing, or some kind of an exploratory testing that is done in a process-oriented manner? If those are the answers, or if that's the kind of chosen answer that you have, then in a way you are somewhere at the maturity level with respect to test execution phase alone. If your answer is, I don't have a process, I just jump in and do the testing, which means that during a critical release where you have a time crunch, you are not doing justice to that particular release because you don't have a plan in place to ensure maximum coverage. So similarly, if you look at test design, there are questions that are being asked in terms of what kind of a review process do you follow? Do you have a peer review mechanism in place? Are your test cases, are the test cases designed by one of your team members being reviewed by other members within the team? Do your business analyst actually reviews the test cases? Is your product management team pitching into test case reviews? These are typical questions that can be addressed during the test design phase to find out what level of process do you have to ensure that your test cases are giving maximum coverage. Because there is no point to create test cases that do not serve the purpose, which is to identify defects. So if that is going to be the case, your test cases are not really, are really not created for what they are meant for. So you need to make sure that your test cases are doing the purpose or doing the work they are supposed to do. And in order to do that, it is important that there are multiple level reviews and things like that. And that's what test maturity is all about. So a similar case could be on defect management, wherein like you try to find out whether you have a process in place to file your defects. How are your defects handled? If there is a defect filed in your production environment, does it get converted into a test case? If yes, in the next cycle, do you really handle them as test cases? Who is converting them? If a customer file defect has come, is there a root cause analysis being done to find out why the defect occurred in production? So typically these are some questions that you need to ask yourselves to make sure that I am somewhere closer to the test maturity process, or I am there actually as a mature organization, or I'm nowhere near the process. So these are three stages that you need to identify. You will be standing at one of these three stages when you do an introspection at the end of the introspection process, and that would help you to go over to the next steps. So the test process assessment page or the test process assessment phase is typically a condition where you introspect your state of affairs to find out what's happening in my organization at this point of time on the QA front, and am I actually is the QA team doing justice to the product in the entire process of the product being shaped up. So some of the questions that you see here are samples. In fact, we are trying to, Aspire is trying to come up with a test maturity assessment page, which will be going live on our website shortly in about 2 to 3 weeks time. So when we get that up and running, we'll point all of you to that. So that will help you to kind of understand where your test maturity is currently. So Ganesh will ensure that the page is shared with all of you once it's in a live environment. So to summarize, the test process assessment phase basically talks about doing a gap analysis of your existing system and finding out where you stand today in terms of your test maturity before we embark on the next steps. And once you have done your test process assessment, the next step is to benchmark. So benchmarking basically is a stage where you try to identify some metrics that are contextual to your product and that are significant to your environment, significant to your product, and that make sense to your product over a period of time. So some of the sample metrics that we have listed here are like defect leakage with SLA saying like it should be less than 2%, defect removal efficiency, zero critical defect leakage, etc. So before I get into all of these things, I just wanted to highlight one thing. Not all organizations would be able to collect the metrics that has been defined here. As I mentioned at the beginning of this slide, you need to understand what metric makes sense to your product, and do you really have the capability to collect metrics? That is most important, because metrics are numbers, but at the same time they cannot be wrong projection of your system. So it is extremely important and imperative that you are collecting the right data, because right data when measured over a period of time on a continual basis will help you to do a trend analysis, which we'll be talking about in the forthcoming slide. But it is important to make sure your data is legitimate, it is genuine, it is not something that comes off the cuff. So in that sense, it becomes important to have data that is genuine, that is legitimate, and accordingly you select metrics for that. For example, if you don't have a process in place, let us say you don't have a test execution plan, for example. Your release is planned for 3 months time, which is about 12 weeks, and your team is supposed to execute 5,000 test cases, and you have a 5-member team. So we are talking about 1,000 test cases to be executed by every member in your team over a period of 12 weeks. So you should devise a plan for each of the member, and 12 weeks is almost a period of about it's about 20 to 60 days. So in 60 days time, the team needs to complete, every person in the team needs to complete 1,000 test cases, which means that approximately he needs to complete about 20 or like 18 or 17 test cases per day. For example, if he is not able to complete that 17 test cases on a given day, what kind of a plan or tracking mechanism is in place to watch or monitor or find out that he has not done that? That becomes extremely critical. If that process is not in place, the tester is going to basically say, I have completed it and I have marked it passed, or he might even claim to complete 25 test cases as opposed to the original planned 17 test cases. But there is no mechanism to track that. So it is important to have a mechanism wherein the leader or anybody senior in the team is able to find out that, okay, as opposed to the planned 17 test cases for execution today, the tester has done only 12, which means that the remaining 5 is getting added to his bucket in the next day, which means that essentially against the originally planned number of 17 for the next day, it will become 22. So it helps you to basically understand that he needs to spend extra time in order to complete 22 the next day. If he again falters in that goal, or if he falls short of that goal, then the remaining number of the second day gets added to the third day's bucket. Now, you could very clearly see that there is a tracking mechanism in place here that will help you to see whether there is a need to work in the weekend to ensure the testing is completed, or is there a need to actually speed up the work by asking the tester to work more hours and things like that. Now, with that kind of a process in place, some of these metrics could make sense. For example, let's talk about defect leakage. You are finding a defect in production, and you want to know how it got slipped to production. So when you trace back the defect to your execution cycle, you will know that which person did the last round of execution for that particular module where the defect slipped into production, and who did it actually. The person who did the execution, when was the execution done, why did the defect mix into production. So you should be able to do a bidirectional traceability. I mean, not be a bidirectional, a reverse traceability at least, starting from the production defect to the person who tested it during the last cycle. But unless and until you have a plan for test execution, this is not going to be possible. And that's why there are going to be some prequels or some fundamental steps in terms of process that will help you to ensure that these things are being done. So these metrics are being collected. So that it becomes very important in order to have some processes before you start on the benchmarking mode. So as part of benchmarking, basically you try to collect some of these metrics that we are discussing here. And some of these metrics, where as somebody asked some time back, what happens if I outsource to a vendor? How does he help me? Now, in that case, this can become a SLA for the vendor himself, a service level agreement. So you can tell the vendor that you want the defect leakage to be less than 1%, and in case if he is not going to meet that, you can in fact have a penalty clause associated with it and things like that. So in a way, for an outsourced vendor, these metrics could be actually a service level agreement which you can track against him or against his performance, and accordingly sign up a contract to work out things. So that's the benchmarking stage where you identify a few metrics that can help you to quantitatively manage your system, but you make sure that they are of high relevance to you and are perfectly contextual to the product that you are using or the product that you are creating. And once we move out of this, we get into the measure continuously stage. So during the benchmarking phase, we identify a few metrics, and those metrics are being measured on a continual basis over a period of time. So to put it simply, the purpose of measuring continuously is to analyze the trend of issues or the trend of reports that are coming through over a period of time, and then trying to find out what specific area do I have a problem with. For example, your defect leakage can be high in the infancy stages of your product, or if you are a startup and things like that. But as more and more time is being spent by testers on your product, naturally the defect leakage needs to come down. If it's not coming down over a period of time and the trend remains the same, which is high, it means that either there are too many changes that is happening from development on your product, which is not allowing testers to complete a complete round of testing or a full round of testing, and they are unable to meet the needs. So every time they find a defect, they file it. The regression is actually creeping more defects into the system. So that kind of a root cause analysis will help. Can basically happen or will help you to do when you measure metrics continuously, or the metrics that you have identified so far. When you start measuring them continuously, it gives a trend of issues or a trend of how things are happening, and it helps you to drill down a little more into whatever problem areas that you think is present there. Not only just with respect to defect leakage, it could be on various metrics actually. We saw a metric called defect removal efficiency in the previous slide, which basically connotes to every defect in that particular phase should be found. For example, a requirement level defect should be found in the requirement level. A design level defect should be found in the design level. In case if a requirement level defect is found in the testing phase, it means that the cost to fix the defect becomes extremely high because it could call for a change in architecture and things like that. So such kind of metrics can be tracked here. So if you constantly see that design level defects are being missed and they are found in some other phase of testing, this measuring continuously approach can help you to identify that and will help you to take the appropriate resolution that is required. And once you start measuring continuously, you are also at the stage where quantitative management has come in. You are no more a company that is ad hoc, or you are no more a company, you are no more an organization that is talking data in the air. You have substantial data that has been collected over a period of time that can be legitimate, can be shared with your stakeholders, which is your customers themselves, and say why your product is of superior quality, or why you consider, or why you are very confident about you are delivering superior product quality to your customers. It's because of all these metrics that you are very confident that your product is of very high quality, and your customers naturally are enjoying high levels of quality in your product when they use it. So that kind of confidence can go to your customers with more and more metrics being added, or with more and more metrics being measured. And finally, you get into the optimized phase where you are, as I said earlier, you have established quantitative management of various metrics, and this is the stage where you get into improvements. So it's in the optimization stage, it's purely to do with improvements. So you try to improve as much as possible in specific areas where you are having problems. So there could be some areas which could be historically creating problems for you in your QA process. So you have already managed to collect quantitative data. The data is available, you know the data is legitimate, and you have already started publishing it to your customers and other stakeholders. Now, this is the time where more byproducts of such metrics can be created. So one specific metric that you have started creating, that you have started to monitor, and that you have started to analyze as a trend, can help you to venture into more defects, more metrics from there, and it could be a byproduct. Chain metrics can be created basically from there. And at the optimization stage, you try to find out what problems specifically are happening in a particular area, and you try to fix them. And this is again an opportunity or a stage to add more metrics to your suite or to your table basically. So the optimization stage is the high maturity stage where an organization can proclaim that I am quantitatively managed, I know what I'm doing, I know the kind of test process that goes into my systems, I know what my QA engineers are doing, I know what kind of productivity I'm getting from them, I know what my defect leakage areas are, I know where my features are failing, I know what my problems are. So this is not a stage where we are saying your problems are all resolved, but rather you as an organization have the confidence to say, I know what my problem is and I know what kind of a resolution is required to stop that or to address that. And that's the kind of work that you will be doing in the optimization stage. So these 4 series of steps help you to reach test maturity. So once again, to summarize, you start off with the test process assessment, where you try to do a gap analysis, and then get into benchmarking, where you try to identify some metrics that are contextual to your product, and then you measure those metrics continuously, and finally get into the optimization stage, where you know that you are a highly qualified test matured organization that's running purely on processes, though an aspect of that is people, when Shankar was referring to the 4 Ps. So the 4 Ps can be realized at test maturity level. And that's the kind of path that you take towards test maturity. And finally, to summarize, these are some of the benefits an organization can reap as part of its efforts towards increased test maturity. An organization with high levels of test maturity, or what is called as increased test maturity, can do continuous defect prevention, because metrics such as defect removal efficiency, defect leakage, zero critical defect leakage to production, etc., are all based on continuous defect prevention. An organization understands what kind of defects are coming in production. They do conduct defect prevention meetings to understand the root cause of such defects, and they adopt the right resolution. So that results in continuous defect prevention, and basically helps save a lot of costs that would otherwise be spent on fixing defects at different stages of the software development life cycle. And the next being test process optimization, which is again a very key area that is helpful in that can be realized as part of increased test maturity. And most importantly, software quality evaluation. What we refer to as software here is your product. So rising the product quality bar is something that needs to happen on a continuous basis, and increased test maturity helps you to do that. And finally, we spoke about test metrics. So there are various test metrics that you are going to collect, and byproducts of such metrics can be created as you move on into high levels of maturity. So that's the path to test maturity, and these are the benefits that you realize as part of high levels of test maturity. So with that, we would like to sign off this presentation. It makes sense for organizations or CXOs who are present here in this call to take a stock of situation to see where you stand by doing a test process assessment, in case if you are experiencing some of the issues that we are talking about here, and then absolutely embark on the right steps in the right direction as you feel forward to. So I would like to thank all the participants here, and we have about 5 minutes of time. I would like to encourage you to post any questions over chat in case you have any. I would be glad to answer them. Okay, we have a question from one of the audience. So the question is, you spoke about test productivity as a process. How do we measure test productivity during the process of my path towards maturity? Okay, so as we were discussing over the call sometime back, during the course of this webinar sometime back, the test execution plan that I was referring to is a very good indicator of your productivity. So somewhere your resources are doing 10 test cases today, and you want to know how good they are doing and how that can be increased. So for example, over a period of time, as they gain product knowledge, if you have a good process that helps you to improve your knowledge transfer mechanism, then naturally your testers are supposed to get more knowledge transfer on the product. They spend a lot of hands-on on your product, and eventually your productivity in terms of test cases would improve. Secondly, as I said, the test case execution productivity is something that will help you to see where your testers are upon every release. So for the first release, it could be 10 test cases that they are executing, but the more time they have spent in the next release, naturally it should become 12 or 15. and then get to a 17 or a 20, which would be the maximum they can do depending upon the complexity and things like that. That's typically on manual testing. The other aspect of improving productivity could be your automation. As you was talking earlier, let's say you have a vendor who's doing QA services for you, and probably the vendor feels that as part of the managed testing services approach that he is using, he feels that automation would be the right thing to do, or automation would help you to leverage the manual testing expertise in new functionality for testing, whereas the existing regression cases can be handled through automation. If he feels so, he would make a pitch for test automation at the right time. So that would be a great productivity saver for you, because the regression is completely going to be handled through automation, and your manual testing team is going to focus on the new features testing. So such kind of efforts or endeavors can definitely help you to improve your productivity. So yeah, I think that kind of answers the question. All right, I think we are almost there. So Ganesh, yeah, we can go ahead and close it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, all of you, for taking your time and attending this. I'll shortly come back to you with the tool that Vasu was mentioning about. We'll do the release, I think, early October. I'll email you the tool once it's finalized. Thanks a lot again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.